Probably more than any other person, little Jimmy Dickens is the man responsible for bringing Marty Robbins to the attention of the public. Recently, the newest member of the Country Music Hall of Fame came by our studios and talked about what he remembered most about Marty.
Memories of Marty Robbins. There's so many, Ralph. And I remember, a few years ago when everybody put their sign on their bus, the name of the act would be all across the side of the bus, and not Marty Robbins. On the marquee up in front of the bus, he put a thing up there that said, "Nobody you know."
Jimmy, you get the credit. You discovered Marty Robbins. I want you to tell us that story.
Well, I don't know. I was going through Phoenix. I was with the Grand Ole Opry show, Mr. Foley and Mr. Acuff, Mr. Tubb, and Hank Williams. And we were working in Phoenix, and Mr. Stone asked me if I'd go by the television station, a live television show, and plug the fact that we were appearing there in town with our Grand Ole Opry. And
try to sell some tickets.
Yes, sir. And I went by to do that, and lo and behold, it was Marty Robbins' show that he had there in Phoenix live. He and Jimmy Farmer, a steel guitar player. A guitar player and a steel guitar player.
What year would this have been?
It was in the early 50s, 51, 52, somewhere along there. And I went by and plugged the show, and while I was there, this guy really done something to me with his singing, and I listened to him sing, and I stayed until his program was over. After that, I asked him if he recorded, and he said no, he wasn't recording, and he wrote a lot of songs, and I just loved him from the very beginning. And I went on to Los Angeles and talked to Mr. Satherley, Uncle Art Satherley, who was the A&R man and vice president of Columbia Records at that time, and told him about this young man and asked him if he would listen to him. And the rest is history. I think that Fred Rose and Harry Stone should be given the credit, because I do think that they were responsible for him coming here to our Grand Ole Opry.
All right, now wait a minute. You go on out and talk to Uncle Art Satherley. Uncle Art is the man who produces Bob Wills and Gene Autry and most of the country stable, and at CBS at that time. Then did Uncle Art, did he say, okay, I'll go down to Phoenix and look at this guy?
He didn't say anything, but he told me later, in later years, that he appreciated the fact that I had mentioned the man to him, because he did come down and listen to him, and you know the rest.
Sign him immediately?
Yes, sir, I think so.
Marty Robbins in those days, I can recall, and I'm going to see if you had the same impression. First time I ever heard about Marty, and they said, we're going to get you a Marty Robbins interview, but he will be real shy. He will be very difficult to bring out. Was that the Marty Robbins you knew?
That's the one I knew in the beginning, because when he came to the Grand Ole Opry, I watched him time after time, and he'd never look at the audience. He'd always look down at the floor when he sang. But when the change did come, you know the rest, because Marty Robbins was developed into one of the greatest entertainers. Not only a great voice and a great singer, but also a great entertainer. He got next to his audience, and he was remarkable.
Were you a fan?
Oh, the biggest one he had, I suppose, and that's saying a lot, because, you know, they call the Marty Robbins Army. I was one of those people.
Jimmy, I thank you for being with us on Nashville Now. And again, let me congratulate you on entering the Country Music Hall of Fame this year.
Well, I'm honored, Ralph, and it's been great, and a lot of response from it, and heard from an awful lot of friends, and I appreciate everybody's kindness.
Isn't it ironic that you and Marty Robbins went into the Hall of Fame just 1 year apart?
That's right, and I'm so glad that he went in when he did.
Jimmy Dickens couldn't be with us tonight because he is on the road, but we were able to get together with Jimmy and tape that earlier. And some of the parts of Marty's story are a little cloudy in spots in those early days as to how he happened to get to Nashville. And Wesley Rose will be along a little later to help us complete the picture. Are we going to take a break at this point in the show? I suppose we are. We'll be right back.